All right. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the TPOT Live podcast. Today's guest is Thomas Del Vasto. And Thomas is someone I met on Twitter. It must have been like 2 years ago, something like that, in the last couple of years.
I've only been on Twitter for about 2 years, so.
Yeah, you had a pretty meteoric rise, I remember. So, I always liked your kind of, I don't know, you have just kind of free-spirited energy. You just say what you want to say, and I think that's something that I kind of strive for in some ways. So I've always kind of been drawn to your vibes on Twitter, in a little corner of Twitter, which we'll talk about. And I'm really excited to have you on the pod, man. How you doing today?
Yeah. I'm doing great, man. I'm really happy to be here. I think in terms of our lore, so yeah, I want to say we met on the timeline, and then we both independently found Joe Hudson's connection course, and I think that's what really like solidified the friendship, you know, because it just helps a lot when you've gone through that sort of thing and you kind of are able to connect in a similar way, you know?
Yeah. Absolutely. What I don't even think I asked you about, like, what was the Joe Hudson, like, what made you want to go and take that course?
Yeah, good question. So it's a bit of a long story. I'll try to summarize as much as I can, but basically I dealt with chronic pain for a really long time. I've written about this in some detail in my Substack. But long story short, dealt with chronic pain from like my late teens. It got worse and worse throughout my early 20s as I got into like high stress sales jobs and, you know, wasn't really managing it properly until eventually I ended up having to quit my first job and then basically got fired at my second position for that and a combination of other reasons. And so I was like, you know, I was in so much pain and so like dysfunctional, not just mentally, but like physically, you know, I had really bad carpal tunnel, back issues, TMJ, all sorts of stuff. So I was like, all right, I got to take some time off to just focus on healing and figuring things out. Right. And this was like really terrifying for me. I've talked to a couple other folks in our corner of Twitter, who are like taking sabbaticals or have recently taken sabbaticals, and something about the culture in the US especially is like, and maybe this isn't true for everyone, but for me at least, taking time off work, like without a job and without a plan to look for a job, is just like deeply scary, you know? Even though I absolutely needed to, I was so like just broken, you know? There's no way I could have hopped into another job, and I had funds, right? I'm not rich by any means, but I had enough to comfortably take like a year, right? So anyway, I decided to do that. And my fiance helped support me to some degree as well. I was still paying my half of the bills, but obviously living with someone, her bringing in income helped a lot. So thank God for her. But anyway, to get back to your question, I was in a few chronic pain communities, specifically around carpal tunnel. And I was using a program called Talon Voice, which this is a really, really cool setup. So basically for people with really, really bad carpal tunnel, they found all these crazy workarounds. So Talon is essentially a voice-controlled interface with your computer. So you download Talon and you can do everything with it, from typing, clicking on the screen, logging on, all sorts of things. And I used it for like close to a year, maybe a little longer. Not solely, I would kind of do like a mix and match, but by the end I had an eye tracker, so I could point the mouse on my screen by just looking at a place, and I would make this little popping noise to click. So you can actually get like quite proficient with it. Anyway, that's maybe a bit of a rabbit hole, but
That's so cool.
it was awesome. Yeah, my friends, when they saw me do it, they're like, "Oh my God, you're like a cyborg."
Yeah.
It was awesome. I mean, thank God I've been mostly healed of my chronic pain issues. I can even like play, video games now and be fine. But back then it was a godsend, man. And I'm so grateful that like people that are in that place and maybe have more permanent issues and disabilities have the chance to like, still go online and interact and do everything that someone without those problems can do. It's so awesome. I briefly considered making like a nonprofit to help people with that. That was going to be called Hands Down Tech.
Nice.
But after I, well, this gets into the rest of the story. So in that community, I met a lot of people that had chronic pain and had been exploring this sort of thing for a long time. And someone started telling me about, the idea that my pain might not be a mechanical issue, it might be an emotional issue, right? Or spiritual or psychosomatic, whatever you want to call it. And I, like almost everyone who hears this, was very, very resistant to that idea at first, like to the point where I would get pissed off whenever anyone suggested that to me. But anyway, so I found out about some of that. Over time, I slowly was like, okay, well, I guess I'll check it out, right? And I don't remember exactly how I found it, but I stumbled onto a course called Nervous System Mastery that Johnny Miller runs. And, I was not working. I had more disposable income than I ever had because at the time I had just left a startup, and essentially I got I don't even know what to call it, a payout, right? For my time there. Nothing crazy, but basically like a year's worth of income. So I was flush with disposable income, and growing up, I was really into like financial independence, saving a ton of money. So normally the idea of paying like $1,000+ on a nervous system mastery course would have been like, no, I'm never going to do that. But for some reason, I think probably just out of desperation, honestly, because I was in so much pain, I was like, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to do this course and we'll see what happens. And that course kind of brought me into the whole world. I learned a lot. And Johnny had Joe Hudson on as a guest. He did like a guest masterclass thing every week, right? Where we bring on an expert in a certain area. And Joe was on, and I remember like there was an older gentleman that I partnered with for one of the exercises. And he was struggling with some really difficult stuff because he had a few children, and one of them had actually passed away due to an overdose. And he was carrying so much guilt and like rage, and it was really just breaking him down. And I watched, oh man, I'm getting emotional just like remembering this, man, because it was so powerful. I watched Joe Hudson coach this man, and in just like 5 minutes, I mean, Joe, he can just kind of like bring things out of people. And like, I watched this man just release this flood of emotions, like deep grief and pain, and then like pure rage. And I was just blown away. I was like, I had never seen anything like this online, offline. I had never seen a grown man express such deep emotion, or really anyone, honestly. And I remember thinking when I saw that, I was like, whoa. It was almost like I saw a portal into like a whole nother dimension or like way of living. I was immediately just kind of like, I gotta see what this Joe guy is up to. So yeah, I finished the nervous system mastery course and started following Joe's stuff, listening to the podcast. And then a couple months later, I think, I don't remember the exact timeline, I signed up for the connection course. So yeah, now I've done it 3 times and a bunch of few conversations outside of it. So yeah.
It's so special what he's doing.
Oh, I know, man. I know. Yeah. And I think we've talked about this before. I don't treat Joe like a guru. He doesn't want people to, right? I don't think that he like can walk on water or anything. I disagree with him on some stuff, but I gotta say, when it comes to getting to the core of like an emotional issue and helping people access that, he is a master. It's nuts to watch him work. I mean, I've actually gotten the privilege to be coached by him in one of his hot seat, like, quick 10-minute coaching sessions. I have the recording, and like, it's so emotionally potent that like I've watched it only one time since then. This was like probably over a year ago, and like the that emotional experience is so powerful that even just like watching it again is almost too much for me sometimes. It's nuts. Like, I don't know how he does it, but I'm very grateful that he is doing what he does, because we both experienced how transformative it can be.
Yeah. I was introduced to him like years ago, before I think he kind of blew up, through his podcast. And to be honest, I didn't actually understand what he was saying and talking about in his podcast before. I thought it was a little too verbose, kind of dense. Like, I wasn't sure what he was getting at. It felt like it was something tangible, something important, but I don't think I had the openness at the time or the capacity even to really see what he was pointing to, And it wasn't until like last summer where something really clicked, where it was a rapid coaching where I was like, oh no, there's something here about how this person is able to just hold the space of a room, and hold the space for someone else it's special, it's different. And not to like pedestalize him or whatever, but like, he's obviously done so much work on himself and learn to like accept himself in such a deep, authentic way that like he can bring that, to others. And I'm sure that gives him like sight, into what's happening in ways that like he probably can't even put into words, So anyway, I love it. Yeah. And so that obviously led me to wanting to take the course too, and just see what it was all about. I wish I could take some of the other ones. They're just expensive, and they're like,
I know,
they're not as, I think he only has a handful a year. So
yeah, the masterclass is very expensive, and it sounds, I don't know how I could do that while working. It sounds so intense.
True.
Like, it's a lot. But maybe one day we'll get to take it.
Yeah. Awesome, man. So obviously, since we met on Twitter, I want to ask you about Twitter, or X, whoever's listening, whatever you want to call it. So I know you and I had a conversation, I think sometime after we first met on the timeline, just a phone call, right? So you may have shared this back then, but just to kind of bring it up again, what was your story? Like, what caused you to want to come and start writing on X and Twitter? Like, what has that whole journey been for you over the last couple of years?
Yeah, good question. And this is something I haven't even really examined that much myself, so I'll kind of be exploring it with you.
Perfect.
Live. So I'll start with just my writing. I actually just published on my blog a bit of my history with writing, but I grew up as, a fantasy, sci-fi nerd. I was obsessed. I've read like easily, I'm not trying to brag, but like well over 1,000 speculative fiction novels, right? Like fantasy, sci-fi, etc. Because I just love it. And so growing up, my dream was always to be a writer. As it often goes, that hasn't quite worked out for me. But, a few years back, I think it was about 3 years ago, maybe 3.5, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to start a blog, right? I had been in the rationality space for a little bit, so like reading Scott Alexander's blog and that sort of stuff. And I was like, I'm just going to write it. I probably don't have anything good to say, but I just want to get some stuff out there because I feel like I need to write. I feel like it's core to who I am. And at the time, I had been doing sales for a few years, and I was like really wanting to get in touch with, my inner child, as they say, or just like a deeper part of myself. And so writing was something that meant a lot to me. So I started a Substack because that was, I think Scott Alexander had just moved over, or maybe he was talking about it, but that was the place to do it in my mind. And so I started writing on my Substack. At the time, it wasn't even like a Twitter clone. It didn't have the like posts and stuff. It was mostly just blogs. But I started running into some people and like getting back into social media because for most of my life, I've been kind of like an anti-social media guy. I was on Facebook and MySpace in middle school, right? But outside of that, I basically quit using Facebook in like mid high school, and then I was just like, social media is addictive and toxic and blah blah blah. And it is all those things, but my experience on Substack kind of got me interested, right? And I didn't like, I hadn't almost ever thought of Twitter until I think it was when Elon Musk bought it or was like in talks to buy it. I follow the I think it's Adam Levine's Money Stuff newsletter. And he was talking about like this acquisition and all this like drama around it, how like, Musk was trying to buy it and then backing out, whatever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. I might kind of see what's up on that website because, a few people had like linked me there in the Substack space. And I don't remember the exact reason I got on, but it was just kind of bubbling up in my consciousness from my Substack mostly, and from all the news about it. So yeah, it wasn't like a planned thing. I got on there and I made an account in like I think July of 24, and I didn't even post or really use it much for a couple months, and then I started like slowly dipping my toes into it. Oh, I remember actually. Do you know who this guy Cube Flipper is? He has like a dolphin profile picture. Okay. He's into like phenomenology. He writes a lot about, weird meditative states and like chemically induced states. And my boss at the startup mentioned that he had written something about like chronic pain that might help me. And he sent me a tweet, X post, a tweet or whatever. And I like couldn't access it until I made an account. So I was like, okay, I'll do that. So I think that's actually when I first got into it. So thank you, Cube Flipper, if you ever listen to this. Yeah. So, and then I just started posting and like you said, got kind of like a surprising amount of traction pretty quickly. And, the rest was history, as they say.
Yeah. So it sounds like it's not really you're not like trying to get somewhere with it. Like it's not like, okay, I'm gonna create an audience and try to monetize it, or maybe that is happening in parallel, or like I don't know. Is there any kind of motive or agenda that you have with it, or are you just truly just kind of like shit? Are you just shit posting?
I mean, I have occasionally, especially when I get really annoyed with my job, there have been times where I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna like grow an audience. I'm gonna make content. I'm gonna, do the thing. But every time, like the second I get into that headspace, it's just like I feel horrible using it, and none of my stuff gets traction at all. So like, it just doesn't work. Trying to force it just like absolutely is useless in my opinion when it comes to this sort of thing. I mean, obviously like some discipline and some like strategy can be good, but no, I don't. Every time I try to make it happen, so to speak, it just immediately flops. So yeah. I kind of do my thing. I write, I talk to people. I like to put in quotes from stuff I'm reading here and there, but yeah.
It's so interesting to me because like I have a lot of friends and family that listen to my podcast, and none of them are in this Twitter world, right? Like, Twitter has this reputation in a lot of circles that's like, oh, right wing crazy people or whatever, and I'm just we're in this little sub community called TPOT, if you want to label it, and it's very unique. It's like a very like. There's really, I've never experienced any place like this, and for better and for worse. I'm not saying it's all, sunshine and roses all the time, but like there's something about it that's very, very like, I'm very grateful that I've stumbled into this, because I don't think I even intentionally sought it out, right? Like the algorithm just kind of starts showing you, and you just kind of like find yourself one day in this thing, and you start hearing this like this moniker of like, oh, Teapot, what the heck is that, So yeah, I find it so cool that like no one in my life really understands what Twitter is for me. Like for me personally, I just, it's a place for me to practice expression, to connect with other like-minded people. Like most of my guests on this podcast have been people I've met online, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and this is an excuse to go deep with people that I vibe with. Like, are you kidding me? Like it's so like, this is life, man. Like this can be our life.
I
And we're
know.
just writing online.
It's awesome, man. I actually have dreams of spinning up a podcast. I've recorded a couple episodes, so maybe I'll have you on one day. But no, I totally agree. And I mean, it's so funny. I agree with your point about TPOT and that like there's something really special here. I think that it attracts like really genuine seekers, right? People that are just full of curiosity and wonder and wanting to understand like what life is about, right? It's a bad way to put it maybe, but just people that are looking for the deep parts of the human experience, you know, and that's something that's so beautiful, and it's something that, you know, I have found can be in tension with other parts of my life, you know, especially if anyone follows me on Twitter, they probably know I'm an Orthodox Christian, relatively recent convert, and I've definitely found that there's tension there, right? Like I love the teapot space. I love the genuine love and curiosity there. It's beautiful. But it can be hard sometimes, you know. I think that if I try to explain some of the things I've learned or some of the just ideas from the teapot space to like fellow Christians, there's a lot of friction, man. It can be tricky. So yeah, it's been interesting, and I've only been in it a couple years max. I think you're maybe similar.
Similar.
Or how long?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's a new thing, and I'm sure my relationship with it will continue to evolve. But it's been great. I mean, I was just posting the other day. I've met a ton of people. Like I've done a couple trips, and I've probably met in person like 50 plus people from Twitter, and I've done easily over 100 of these calls with folks I met online. But I think the most impactful thing for me in Teapot is finding a couple of older men that are really experienced in sort of like the spiritual inner work, what have you, right? That world that I trust to kind of guide me, right? Because that's been, you know, I grew up mostly without a father. My father passed when I was really young, and so being able just through like random happenstance online to find some older men that I really feel like I can go to and trust, right, has been really big for me, man. It's so wonderful, and I'm really grateful for that, especially. Yeah.
Wow. That's amazing. I had no idea.
Yeah. No, it's been good. I think that's been a big, really kind of theme of my I don't know what you want to call it, my path lately is, you know, seeking out older men that sort of have in Orthodoxy, we call it a phronima, right? Like I think the actual translation from Greek is mind, almost, but it's also like a worldview, like a way of being in the world, the phronima. Finding older men that have a phronima that I want, right, that I admire, that I would like to grow more close to, you know, and ideally express myself one day. And so, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of what drew me about Orthodoxy is finding that too, because I was just talking to another mutual yesterday about this, but it's so rare, at least in the culture that I grew up in the US, it's so rare to find a community that has older men that are involved and engaged and willing to mentor and to bless the younger men, right? I really feel like for various reasons, like you can call it whatever, like the positive, the mature masculine can be hard to access for a lot of young guys nowadays. So that's been really, really healing for me to find more of in my life and explicitly kind of focus on that, Yeah.
Nice. I'm tempted to ask you who these people are, but you don't have to.
You can? No, you're good. One of them isn't on Twitter anymore, and he's kind of like disappeared online. He's an older Orthodox gentleman who I love dearly. Hopefully, he'll come to my wedding. He's invited. The other one is Vivid Void on Twitter, who you probably know if you've been in TPOT. He was one of the progenitors of TPOT, apparently. I don't know if he would claim that title, but that's what I've heard on the street. And yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah, I actually met him. I went to his wilderness retreat last year in Boulder.
Oh, lovely. Yeah. I haven't gotten a chance to go out to Boulder yet. I would love to visit. He's apparently planning a Christian mystics retreat sometime in the next year or so. So it's gonna be hard with, I'm getting married in October.
Congrats.
And yeah, thank you. And a lot of travel this year, but I'm really hoping I can attend that, or perhaps a subsequent one if he does another. Because, I think he would do a great job.
He's awesome. Yeah, he's great. I wanna come back to this Christianity arc, because I know from what you post, and just I feel its importance, obviously, in who you are as a person, and how you orient, right? But real quick, I want to go back to the carpal tunnel and like the chronic. Like, I don't think I ever actually kind of tied a loop on that. What kind of happened? It sounds like it's no longer the problem that it used to be. I'm curious, how did that happen? How did you kind of heal, and where are you today with it? And anything you could share with anyone listening who might have these kinds of chronic issues, and how to approach them.
Yeah. So I'll do a quick plug. If anyone does want to go deeper on this, I have a couple of Substack articles that I've written on it, and I have one list of a long list of resources, blogs, books, videos, different techniques that can help with chronic pain. So if you're listening to this and you're struggling with that, or you know someone, I definitely recommend taking a look at that list. Because I've done a lot of research in the space, and as you say, kind of gone through it myself. Let's see. So I think I'll start by saying, again, I was a pretty nerdy kid, right? I spent a lot of time reading and a lot of time playing video games when I was young. And I learned from a young age to sort of disassociate from my body, right? So looking back, I already would have pain in my wrists from my 10-hour gaming sessions, right? Playing just the worst, League of Legends and these horrible, addictive online competitive games. But I just ignored it, I don't consciously remember the first time I started dealing with pain in my hands and wrists. If I had to guess, it was probably as early as 11 or 12, just because that's when I started gaming really heavily. But it never got to be that big of a problem until I want to say 19 or 20. I was in college, and I had started dancing, right? I got my heart broken by a lovely lady, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to become hot. I'm going to learn to dance. So I joined the ballroom dance team at a college, and I started dancing really intensely because the club was mostly focused on competition, right? Ballroom doesn't have a huge social scene, in large part because in order to dance ballroom with a person that you haven't danced with before, it requires a lot of skill compared to something like salsa or swing. Ballroom is very, there's a high floor, right? There's a high, there are sort of barriers to entry. So anyway, most serious ballroom is focused on competition, right? So I started, while I was in college, I was also working part-time at a gas station and, doing my course load. And I started just getting obsessed with dance. I would practice 3 times a week. sometimes on my own, sometimes with my dance partner. I would do 2 lessons a week on top of that. So I was dancing like almost every day, right? And then I started competing as well, and competitions are intense. You're dancing multiple rounds. Each round is only like 2 or 3 minutes usually, but it's extremely physically demanding. And you're doing, probably like 20, 30 rounds, depending on how well you do, right? If you advance, they call them heats in ballroom. So like you start with the first heat and then you get to the next heat if the judges think you did well. All this to say, this was the first time I really started paying attention to my body, right? I was so disembodied. I was so in my head. And I started pushing myself really hard. And especially once I started competing, I noticed this pain in my hip, right? Because obviously ballroom, you do a lot of leg stuff, right? And so I was like, what's going on? And I asked some other dancers and they were like, oh yeah, it sounds like you might have some sciatica issues, right? Because that's kind of where the pain was. So I was like, okay, well, I'll check it out. And so I went to a PT, started doing some like stretching, that sort of thing. And I just continued to kind of ignore it, right? And the problem got worse over time. It started spreading to like, my calf, my ankle, my lower back. But I just, I would just push through it. Because frankly, that's, especially in ballroom, that's kind of the mentality, right? It's like, it's going to hurt, but you just suck it up and do it anyway. Yeah. And so, I just kept doing that. And then eventually I graduated school and I ended up getting a sales job that was extremely stressful and intense. And, I took the same mindset to it as ballroom. I was like, I'm going to crush this. I'm going to make a ton of money. I'm going to become really successful and I'm going to retire at 35. That was my goal coming out of college. I laugh now. There are worse goals to have, but still. And I started like, that's when the chronic pain stuff became such a big problem. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I started getting a lot of pain in my face and jaw. Got diagnosed with TMJ. And that's when I really started going to doctors, going to PTs, really trying to figure out what happened, what was happening. And I remember at one point and this was maybe like a year into the sales job, maybe like 10 months, something like that. I was sitting at home. I was still living with my mom at the time to save money. And I was like playing a video game or talking to a friend or something. And all of a sudden my jaw and my face locked up and half of my tongue went numb, literally, and was like tingling. And I was like, what the hell is going on? And I looked it up and I thought I was having a stroke. So I like, went and got my mom and I like communicated to her. I could barely talk, but I was like, we got to go to the ER, right? Because like I am dying, is what I thought. And I went to the ER and they checked me out and they ran some tests and they were like, you're totally fine. Nothing's wrong with you. Right. It's like, oh, well, there goes like $500. Okay. And that was probably the moment when like, my mom realized and I realized, and like when I told my friends, they realized like I had something seriously wrong with me. So, I won't go into all the sort of gory details. Again, I've written about this publicly. If folks want some more of my story.
Description. We'll put those in the description.
Perfect. But yeah. Over time, it got worse and it got better as I did different things to manage it. But until I took that sabbatical from work that I was talking about earlier and got into nervous system mastery, the emotional work, but really I think the more salient and probably most important part is I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, as they say in the South. I came to Christ, and I still credit him with healing me, ultimately. It wasn't like a bolt of lightning, right? Like I didn't pray, Lord, please heal me, and then like all of a sudden I was perfectly fine. But the process of opening my heart to him and finding faith, to me, is the deepest thread that allowed me to heal. Obviously, I did emotional work. I did, somatic exercises, physical exercise, all sorts of stuff. But I do, in retrospect, see, and even at the time, later on, I see my faith as being the core piece, right, that allowed me to really heal. And, you know, with this sort of chronic pain stuff, I don't think it ever fully goes away. Like I say, I'm healed, and I am, but if I spend too long gaming, I'll still have a little like stiffness. I'll have to like, you know, jiggle a little bit, work it out. But it's to the point where I'm fully functional. I can work, I can game, I can do whatever, right? I lift weights twice a week and have for years, and I do cardio, and like I'm maybe not as fully fit as some people. Like, I've thought about doing Brazilian jiu-jitsu or other like serious martial arts, but I've been kind of warned that because I have some hypermobility issues and like my joints pop out of socket easily, it could be really dangerous, right? So I have some limitations, but ultimately I feel fine. I feel a million times better than I ever thought was possible when I was in the deepest, darkest parts of that. Yeah.
I love it. I'm curious, and I hope I'm not like pressing any buttons by asking this question, but I'm curious, like, was it, in your experience, was it like a miracle of like, oh, like once I like kind of surrendered to this, it just kind of everything started to heal? Or do you feel like there was something else? Maybe if you could like break down kind of what was happening. I have a theory of how this stuff happens, but I don't want to say it yet. I'm curious, kind of like your interpretation of how finding Jesus during this time helped kind of alleviate what you were going through.
Yeah, good question. I'm not going to try to define what a miracle is, because, far holier theologians than me have been wrangling with that one for a long time. I would say I consider it a miracle. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I think that this is faith and healing, and this sort of thing is one of the most mysterious and difficult things to explain, right? So I'm not going to like come up with a theory and solve it right here, but I can give you kind of my understanding. I think that, to me, the core of being a Christian is changing your heart, right? That's what repentance actually means in the Greek. It comes from the Greek word metanoia, which meta is like over or above, and noia is like the nous, like the heart, the mind, the innermost part of our being. And so to me, coming to Christ really was turning my heart, changing my heart. I think that growing up, I was an atheist for a long time. I was into Buddhism. I kind of, how do I put this? My heart was not pointed in the right direction. The things that I was working towards, the things that I was focused on, the innermost part of my being was twisted up and knotted and clenched. And to me, coming to Christ represented and still represents, and it gave me a really explicit way to turn myself towards the light, right? Towards goodness, towards love, towards beauty. And, this might get me in trouble with some other Orthodox folks. I don't think that Jesus Christ is the only way to do that. I do think that he is the best and most complete way, which is why I'm an Orthodox Christian, but I absolutely think that I know for a fact people can heal from chronic pain without Christ. People do it all the time. There's plenty of stories, right? But I don't know if I could have. I don't know, and again, I'm not going to solve like religion and faith right here, but I know that for me, Christ is just the most important thing in my life. Even if I don't always act that way, even if I'm not perfect, right? In terms of being a good Christian, he's what I want to center my life around. But one of the people that I go to for advice, who I think is, I look up to him, right? He's a mentor. He always says, when I'm dealing with like a struggle or like a question in life, he's like, ask yourself what the best and wisest part of yourself would say, And I would say that the best and wisest part of myself wants to follow Christ, to follow the way. It's funny, before Christians were labeled Christians in Antioch in the first century, they were just known as the people of the way. Yeah. And honestly, I like that name a lot better. Yeah.
The way. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I'm not going to solve it, but I hope that answers your question to some degree.
No, it's amazing. I like, for what it's worth, from my perspective, because I've heard this story in different ways, and I think there's something about like just belief, like believing that that something can be different, in you, in your experience in life, and in this case, like the pain that you feel every day. Like, I think it's so easy to get locked into a way of like, this is who I am, like this is permanent, this can't be changed, and it goes into like management of how do I alleviate the pain, and we kind of forget, or we almost we kind of forget that there's it can be solved, it can be healed, it can no longer plague us. That's also an option.
Well, we need love. We need someone from the outside to come to us and help us, right? We can't do it alone. And this is one of the core mysteries of the Holy Trinity, right? Even God is a community of persons. Even God, the creator of the universe, the sustainer of every single thing in every single moment, even he needs relation, right? He is a relationship. He's not one dude. He is a community.
Yes.
Melded together in perfect love. And I just, it's such a deep, I don't know, idea maybe, or just fact of life in the universe that it just, I agree with what you were saying. We get turned inward on ourselves and we forget. And obviously there's things that we can do, but ultimately I believe that we need others. We need love. We need healing, right? We need people to lay their hands on us metaphorically and say, you're going to be okay, right?
Yeah.
You can change. You can heal. Yeah.
Yeah. I can relate to this so deeply. It's so funny. I wouldn't say I've had a hardened heart in my life. Like I've had a pretty open heart, to the point where it was too open, where I'm just like kind of giving it freely and people are just wounding me left and right, and I had no idea what's going on. But I kind of found the spiritual path, like I would say about 3-ish years ago. Before that, I was very like agnostic. I didn't have any sense of, I didn't care about these things. Like it just wasn't a part of my life. Like I was just trying to get a better job, and I cared about very different things. And in the first kind of like 2 years of that path, until last summer, I kind of fell into that whole new age kind of like oneness, and we're all love and light, and like all these things that at the time it was so like, oh yeah, this feels so great. Like, oh my gosh, like this makes so much sense. But it wasn't until last summer where I met my friend Andres, who I have this Saints in Pairs podcast with. And
I've seen some of your episodes. He seems like a lovely guy. I'd love to meet him sometime.
He's a beautiful, beautiful soul. And he's had like very mystical experiences, in Christianity when he was younger. And I just didn't really entertain Christianity. I had nothing against it. I just didn't, it wasn't part of my world. So I just didn't have any way to relate to it.
How did you grow up? What faith or lack of was in your family?
My mom was somewhat Hindu, like very dogmatic, just like, doing her prayers and whatnot. But she didn't really have an understanding of what the bigger picture of Hinduism is, right? My dad, very much of the world, like, again, career focused, also a very loving person in his own way. But he was, he was not religious whatsoever or spiritual. So
did you
I
like
didn't.
Did you go to temple? Like, do you have a?
Occasionally, it wasn't like a daily or not it wasn't a regular thing. It was like, Gotcha. Special occasion. Let's go to the temple or whatever. But no, it was not a part of my life. My mom never shoved it down my throat, which I'm grateful for. She tried a little bit, but we, my brother and I, we resisted it. She would put like books of like Indian gods in the bathroom. If this is pre-phone, so hey, if you guys get bored while you're on the toilet, here you go.
That's peak like passive aggressive mom behavior. I love that. That's awesome. Oh man,
yeah,
show her.
She's great. But it wasn't until I was acquainted into Christianity through my friend who I met here.
Andres?
Because he didn't shove it down my throat either, but he embodied it. He has this loving quality to him that like everyone feels around him, everyone sees on the podcast. And he started to explain Christianity to me. He started to explain his relationship to Jesus with me. And I started to this is also the time where a lot of my like, and I don't talk about this stuff a lot on Twitter or anything, so this is, probably new information, but like, I was going through a deep awakening of like, I'm trying all kinds of different faiths, different paths, different traditions, lineages. Yeah. I was going through the Rolodex of every person I could think of, every guru I could think of. And none of them stuck. Nothing felt alive to me. And I mean, Christianity didn't stick in the sense that I'm not a Christian, but I understood the love that you're speaking about. And I found that unique to Christianity. I didn't find that anywhere else. Every other like lineage I went to just felt like dogma. It felt like
Wait, sorry, what did you find unique exactly?
There's this quality of relating, right? It's not just about my individual liberation. It's not about like, let me just be free of suffering. It's like there's this inherent quality of like, how are you with your neighbors? Like, and Jesus himself like represents like the like divine energy in human form, so we can relate, we can understand like what does someone like that move? How does he move in the world? Because otherwise it's so conceptual. Like, how do you connect to that? So I read the Bible after I got so into it, and I was like, I understand like why this religion is what it is today. Like, it makes sense to me. And I have a deep respect and love and reverence for what it represents. And I have my opinion about the church, and like there's different things. It's not perfect, but
oh yeah, me too.
Yeah, but like I can see through all that, and I'm like, okay, I understand the essence of it. And like I've been watching The Chosen, and that show is just beautiful representation of like who Jesus was. And yeah, I just feel love. I feel like a part of me opened, like my heart just feels even more open. Like there's a representation of this love that people speak of that I found within Christianity. And like, I'm very grateful to it for that. So I love hearing your story too, because it's just more proof to me that, and I do believe there's infinite ways to God. Like, it's not like I don't think Jesus is the only way. But like, he is a way, and he can teach all of us something beautiful. So yeah, it's a little like, I'm a little nervous talking about this stuff out loud, this kind of like confidently, but truly this is my experience. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and I'm really glad to hear that, man. And I would say that I'm not saying you're going to convert, right? But that's the exact mindset that I had. And I think you made a really good point that I just want to like focus on, in that your friend Andres didn't try to shove it down your throat, right? I think that so many people have so much trauma and so much pain when they think of Jesus Christ, because frankly, a lot of Christians do that, right? A lot of Christians want to shove it down people's throat. They want to say, this is the way, everything else is evil. You need to repent, right? And I just, I agree with you. The reason I even started considering Christianity is I had a close friend who I worked with, right, at that stressful sales job. He's actually my best man now. So
Nice.
thank God for him. And I remember when I was, sort of thinking about like masculinity and who I wanted to be before I considered Christianity at all, I was thinking, okay, like of all the men I've met, who do I really respect and admire the most? And this guy came to mind, right? And I didn't even know he was a Christian. We had talked about philosophy, but he had never brought up his faith once, in like years of knowing him and playing D&D and hanging out. And I got lunch with him, and he, crossed himself real quickly. And I was like, you're a Christian? What? And we started talking about it, and I was like, whoa. And he's never once tried to shove it down my throat, but just like we're talking about, the relationship, the love, and the respect I had for him really is what brought me in. And, it's like, I think you can kind of like push or force people into the faith with forceful evangelization. And, I don't want to speak in absolutes. Like, maybe that's good sometimes. Maybe some people need that, right? Maybe they were going down a really, really bad path and they would have died, or they would have, just hurt other people really badly if they didn't get a forceful push in the right direction. So, I think that maybe there's some limited use for that, but I think that it is way overdone today. And one of my favorite quotes from the saints, I don't know if he's technically an Orthodox saint, but I'm just going to go with it, is Saint Francis of Assisi. He says, preach the gospel without ceasing. Use words when necessary. And I just
love that.
It. Yeah.
I fucking love that. Wow. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
The saints get it, man. They're so beautiful. I have a friend who's also not Christian, but he's into it, and we talk about it a lot. And he might, I don't know, you might like talking to him, but he has this beautiful way of talking about the saints. He's like, they are living symbols. They are living bridges between heaven and earth. They show us the supernature, what we can ascribe to. They show us the depth of what a human can become. And it's so true. It's so true. Oh, yeah. I love it.
Yeah. And I had no exposure to any of this kind of energy that we're talking about until I met my friend. And through him, again, I can't even, I mean, okay, let me answer your question and then I'll explain why it's crazy. Yeah. We met on a online men's group here in Austin. This is before I moved to Austin. Mm-hmm. He reached out to me saying, hey, there's something about your energy, bro. Like, can we have a conversation? I'm like, for sure. And then I met him a month later when I was visiting Austin to find an apartment to live in. And we had we went all the way in our conversation. And he shared these like 3 experiences he had when he was younger, like dissolving into light and, basically coming face to face with Jesus. And it was crazy. And he didn't know how to make sense of it. And some things happen where he kind of like lost faith. So he kind of lost faith. He wasn't sure what caused him to lose this connection that he had when he was younger. And that's been his journey. But we and then we met again, like when I moved here. I had not reached out to him at that point. I was like, let me settle in first before I reach back out to this guy. I was at the gym just signing my membership for the year. I turned around and guess who's right there staring at me?
Really?
Oh, and I was like, what are the chances? What's going on here? This is like divinely orchestrated, it feels,
Yeah. No, absolutely.
So we have a very deep, it's like I've known him for a long time. I've only known him for a year, but I feel like I've known him for lifetimes.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful friendship.
Oh man, I'm so happy for you. That's a beautiful thing, and it's so rare, so rare. So that's lovely. I
Yeah.
I swear, as an aside, I think God is calling me to Austin because you're not to move necessarily, but you're like the fourth person I've talked to just in the last couple weeks that happens to live there. And I'm just like, man. So maybe I'll come visit you at some point.
If you're here, I mean, I'm not going to be here much longer. I'm actually moving back to California.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But if you do visit, let me know. I will connect you with Andres. He would love to meet you. I know it.
Yeah. No, that'd be lovely. I'd love to
And
do a call with him as well.
yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, I forgot we were on a podcast. Great.
That means it's good, right?
Yeah. Where are you today with your faith? Like, do you? Yeah, I'm just how would you describe that?
Yeah, good question. Oh man, yeah. So right at this moment, I would say I'm feeling good about it. Let me just lay it out pretty clearly. I love Orthodoxy. I've been Orthodox officially only a year and a half, but I love it. I have no plans to leave. I go to church every week, sometimes more. I'm active in my church. I run the young adults group. I sing in the choir. But there are definitely some difficulties, right? As with any community. I actually just yesterday made a post that's kind of been going viral a little more than I'd like about some of my frustrations. With kind of what we were talking about earlier, right? The people that are very forceful, that are very sort of, I would say, like driven by fear and anger when it comes to the faith. There's a lot of young men, especially coming into Orthodoxy in America, that they see it as like a hardcore based, like, we're going to own the libs kind of, I don't want to like stereotype too much. Obviously it's every person is different and complicated. And I have traditionalist views in some ways myself. But it's difficult. And and this isn't just something about me. I mean, I've talked to my priest and my godfather about this, and it's a known issue amongst the clergy. They talk about it a lot, how a lot of modern converts in the West don't have the Orthodox phronima, right? The fragrance of the church that has been preserved for centuries and millennia. And it always happens, right? When there's a surge in converts historically, the church will learn to teach young men of the West better in time, but it's tricky right now. And so, again, my faith at its core feels very solid. My love for Orthodoxy feels very solid. I don't see myself leaving the Orthodox Church anytime soon, if ever. I hope to God I don't, because I've jumped around from a lot of communities in my life, and it's very exhausting. I think that I feel a home in Orthodoxy. I feel like it's a place where I can get married in the church, raise children, bring them up in the faith. It feels like something I can live into, but yeah, there are definitely difficulties. And I think, ironically, right, a lot of them are relational and community based. A lot of it is like, how do I, as someone who has, spent hundreds, probably thousands of hours like meditating and, having all these weird mystical experiences and doing things like the connection course and doing emotional work and talking to people like yourself and all this, how can I relate to people in the church that maybe haven't done a lot of this and have a very different view of Christianity, view of the church, a different relationship with Christ? How can I relate to them? How can we love each other? How can I forgive them better? How can we open our hearts to each other? That's tricky for me. And I think it's always tricky in any community with any, large group of people. You're going to have struggles, right? So that's something that's been on my mind a lot lately. But again, my faith at its core feels very solid. So yeah, I hope that answers your question. Again, you keep asking me questions and I kind of like wax philosophical for 10 minutes.
I love it. That's the best thing about these conversations.
Yeah. I'm surprised at how easy it is. You're good at bringing it out of people, man. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah. Wow. You have this one Twitter, this one tweet you put out like every night. I don't know if it's every night of the week.
Not every night.
Yeah. Okay. What is that? Can you share with our listeners like what that tweet is?
Yeah. I'll share with the class. I just say good night, or I put the words or the letters G in, right? And I say, know you are loved and forgiven. And I got the idea from Vivid Void, actually. He doesn't do it as much anymore, but he used to do a lot of like, good night, I love you posts. And
some beautiful artwork.
Yes, yeah. And I try to share beautiful artwork as well, although it's getting harder to find with, AI art, but that's a whole nother tangent. I really admired that. And when I first joined TPOT, it was a lot more common, actually. I don't see it as much anymore. But a couple of years ago, it was like a lot of people were doing that sort of thing. And I really like to do it. I don't do it every day. I used to do it very consistently to the point where like I went on a vacation and I like scheduled a bunch of them to go off, right? But it started feeling too strategic. Like I was talking about earlier, it started feeling like I was trying to grow. And I wanted to say it like when it felt authentic, And that's another reason I didn't just kind of say what Mr. Void is saying, like, good night, I love you, because, I don't love all these people. I want to. That's the ideal, right? But I wanted to say something that I felt like I could really get behind. And when I say, know you are loved and forgiven, I mean by God, And I do believe that. I do believe every person is loved and forgiven by God. And, there's some semantics around like you have to ask for forgiveness to be forgiven, but I'm not worried about that, right? I believe that in my heart, and I like to share it. And I like finding out about art too. I'm not a very visual person. I grew up like with my nose in a book all the time. So my mind's eye hasn't like developed too much, but especially as I get older, I'm appreciating art more and more. And so I really like the process of like, I want to find a picture of like, a lady on a lake or something, or like a Japanese temple in the moonlight, and just like imagining things visually and finding something that speaks to me. I like that part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, dude, for what it's worth, I really believe words are spells in some sense.
Yeah.
And there's something about, I'll catch your post occasionally. I probably don't, catch it every single day or every time you post it, but there is something comforting when I read it. Even if it's in passing, even if I'm just scrolling and like, I'm just like half reading it, it registers in a way. So yeah, thanks for casting that spell on me. Cause I know it's making some kind of difference.
Yeah. No, of course. No, and I love that. And, going back to like the whole teapot phenomenon, the corner of Twitter that we're in, like I know what you mean. There's something really like lovely and comforting about how people post and how they treat each other and talk to each other. That's so wholesome, right? I mean, that word is kind of overused, but it's wholesome. It's loving. It's white magic, right? It's good spells, to use the way you're putting it. And yeah, I mean, I gotta say, I didn't start it, right? I just kind of came in and started copying what other people did, but I love it, man. It's great. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah. You're probably going to make me want to do it a little more consistently now. So that's good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I got one more question for you.
Okay. Yeah.
If we sat down a year from now for a follow-up podcast, what would you want to be true about your life that isn't quite true today?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. Dang. What would I want to be true about my life that is not true today? Oof. In 1 year. I'll go for things that are like realistic, right? Because obviously there's I could say like, oh, I want $1 million and et cetera. But yeah, what would I want to be true 1 year from today? Well, my first thought is I want to be married, right? Like, hopefully nothing goes wrong there. God willing. I think we're in a good setup. We got a few months to go and everything's sliding in well, but yeah. I mean, some of the basic stuff comes to mind. I want to be married. I'd like to have get a promotion, right? A higher level job than I have right now. Sort of the basic life stuff, right? On a deeper level, I want to have more community. It's not exactly the right word, but it is true. I think I want to have more connection in my life. More conversations like this, right? More deep connection with other people, with myself, with God. You know, I want to really make that a focus. And I've been trying to do that lately. I mean, that's why we got together. I don't know if I reached out to you or how we sort of reconnected and talked about this podcast, but, you know, we did that View conversation a few weeks back, and that was awesome. And I don't always have enough capacity to do those very often because they can be strenuous, you know, and I always feel really guilty because I've scheduled them with some friends and had to cancel because I'm just like, I can't go there right now, right? To like the deep emotional places, but I want to prioritize that more. I want to focus on connection, love, that feeling of like aliveness, right? To take your name for the podcast. I want more of that. And in a like concrete sense, one of my goals for, you know, not necessarily the next year, but just in general, is to have at least one of these types of conversations a month, right? Nothing too crazy, but I want to make sure that I don't go a long stretch of time without having a really honest, deep connection or deep conversation in connection with someone. Because I've noticed that if I let that slip, if I don't make an effort and really carve out time and prioritize really just having an honest, deep conversation with people about the things I'm struggling with, like my pain, you know, the difficulties of life, then, you know what, I can go to a difficult place. It gets a lot harder, right? If you don't make sure to share with people, if you don't make sure to open your heart regularly. So yeah, that's what I'd like to focus on I think the deepest level outside of the, you know, the other stuff. Yeah.
That is so beautiful. Oh, I feel that in my heart, man. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. No, thank you for asking me because I'm not a big planner. I'm not a big like goals guy, so I hadn't thought about it too much, but that is something that feels really alive to me at the moment. Yeah.
Incredible. Well, Thomas, this has been such a beautiful conversation, man. Thank you for opening your heart.
Yeah.
And just.
Oh, I agree.
Yeah, this has been incredible. I cannot believe we're already like an hour and 10 minutes into this.
I know. Oh. No, thank you. This has been lovely. I mean, like you said, a lot of the time it felt like we weren't even on a podcast. Like we were just having a great conversation. So, no, thank you so much for inviting me on here. I'd love to come on again in a year, right? We can take notes and be like, all right, how'd you do?
Let's do it.
Yeah, and I'd love to
see if you got those $1 million in your bank.
Hey, you never know. Manifest it, right? Maybe. No. Yeah. No, this was lovely. Thank you for having me.
Awesome, man. So we'll link those Substack articles that you mentioned about the chronic pain that you've kind of been through and you've written about. I'll put your other contact also in the description. Any last words? Anything else you want to share before we sign off?
Yeah. So one thing I'll share is I talked a bit about Orthodox Christianity in this podcast. Formerly, it's the Eastern Orthodox Church. I know it's a bit obscure to folks, so if you are curious and you like don't know much about orthodoxy and you want to learn more, right? I'm not trying to like push it on people, but if you want, I'd recommend the book Thinking Orthodox by Dr. Jeannie Constantinou. She's a brilliant academic theologian who's been Orthodox her whole life, and she does an incredible job of explaining at a deep level, not just like it's not a book focused on theology. It doesn't like, it gives a little bit of the historical overview of like the Orthodox Church, but most of it is focused on like, what is the heart of an Orthodox person supposed to be like? What is the mindset? How do you approach life? And it explains that in Orthodoxy, the goal is not to become like the perfect rule-following robot, right? The goal is to become like Christ in your heart. You're not supposed to be legalistic. You're not supposed to be overly rational. You're not supposed to be, too focused on, am I doing the right thing? Am I following all these rules? It's about your heart, your mindset, your phronima. So if folks are interested, I would recommend that book, Thinking Orthodox. Yeah, it had a big impact on me when I was first sort of looking into all this. Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. And I'll put that in the description as well, so for everybody. So
okay.
Thank you all for listening, for tuning in. We'll catch you guys next time. And as always, stay kind. Much love.